to be, they need to trust. They need to trust that you've got their back. That's one of the number one things for especially new parents, is when their dog checks in or makes eye contact. That whenever that dog is doing that, the parent is thinking the dog needs praise or guidance. We need to help our dogs in our complicated human world. I mean, we've got gadgets and things that we talk to. I mean, think about it from a perspective of an animal, how fast technology and things, everybody's talking to screens. I Skype with some of my clients' dogs. It's amazing to me. I mean, you know, I'll ask them to sit over the internet, and it's amazing that they do it. But this is a lot for dogs.
You Skype with the dogs?
I have talked to clients' dogs. It's always crazy when, you know, I have many Skype clients who we work for weeks and months, and I'll talk to the dog. They'll come over and I'll say, sit, who's a good boy. And it's really a challenge of mine to get that dog to wiggle and wag through the Skype. But it's really brilliant. It's really interesting. But just the fact that they can do that, and they'll play along with we silly humans, and they'll do things, is pretty phenomenal. But they're always adapting and adjusting. And yeah, so I've had foster dogs that I talk to, you know, and we'll Skype over time. It's pretty cool. They get it. They get your voice. I don't know how much they see, but they get the voice of it all. So they react to that, the familiarity. But it's really, you know, so for me, when we begin with families, we're usually working with a family who had a dog. Maybe they were planning on conceiving, not planning on conceiving, trying to conceive, and they get a puppy or they get a dog. It really, so many families do that. And that dog may or may not have been a good candidate for a growing family. And some dogs, you know, haven't been socialized properly. The first 16 weeks of a dog's life are critical in the socialization period, to expose them and really help them to get acclimated. And so it's one of those things that we want to do. When a family's expecting, we're going to introduce many different things. And we're also going to help them go over things. And one of the things that you talked about, Connie, was probably your dog was not sure what to do now that a baby was there, because your focus was 100% on the baby. And so not only are you talking probably in the same tone and dialogue that you would have with your dog, I know you, Connie. Who's a baby? You know, I mean, you probably were baby talking your dog. And now that you're doing that to a child, your dog's very confused. They don't understand why it's not about them. Why aren't you paying attention to them? So what they do is they start to find things to get your attention. They try all the tricks that have worked before. A lot of times they'll try things that are annoying. Negative attention is worth it to them. And so what we find is the cycle continues. And when you're holding a newborn or you're breastfeeding, you really don't want your dog jumping on your lap, nudging you, all those things. And so we tend to tell them to go away, or we get impatient. It's probably the most vulnerable time in a family's life is when they have their newborn. It's a very different period. And parents are shocked. Tell them, there's a way to warn them. You're going to feel differently about your dog the second you bring home your newborn. You just will. I felt differently about getting in a car. It's part of the sensitivity. It's part of that phase, right? Is to feel that vulnerability, and you're now a protector. You're now the parent. It's a different role. So you may look at your dog very differently, and that can be confusing too. And it's not unusual for mothers who have had a history, whether it's been a bite in the past, or they've witnessed a bite, or they witnessed a dog attacking another dog. This is the time some of that fear come up. I see it regularly, and it's something that is a concern of mine that many people don't treat dog incidents, dog bites, dog, they kind of take care of the physical, but they don't take care of the emotional. And I see new parents really struggle with that, So there's a lot of things involved in what we do when it comes to kids and dogs.
Okay.
So I think your dog might have been very confused.
Yeah. So what kind of tips can you give the parent that that maybe has had the dog for a while? Maybe he was part of the marriage. Maybe he, and I say he, maybe the dog, was the one partner or the other partners and came as a package in the marriage, and now all of a sudden there's a baby. What are some tips that they can use to kind of, I know, and this may be old school too, so this is why I'm really anxious to hear what you have to say. It used to be that they would tell parents to introduce the concept of the baby by maybe carrying around a doll with swaddled in blankets, and then once the baby is born, before it comes home from the hospital, take the blanket home and get the dog accustomed to the scent of the child. What are your thoughts on that?
So a couple different things. Those are really good suggestions. But when we look at the effectiveness and the expectations of those exercises, that's where I get a little concerned. So although there's no harm in either one of those, the expectation is that the dog is going to, it's going to be, that exercise is for the dog. I would say that those exercises are more for the human. When we practice with a baby doll, and in fact, what I use is I actually put about 8 to 10 water bottles. I know this is going to sound totally ridiculous. I put 8 to 10 water bottles in a pillowcase because they're incredibly low value, but they weigh, I don't know, I had large babies, so they weigh about what a baby does, and it wiggles. And what I want to do is your body language when you're holding something that's 10 pounds is going to be different. So you're going to move differently. You're going to get up off the floor differently when you're trying to wrangle all those bottles and keep them in a line or whatever. It's silly, but babies wiggle and move. I'm not saying that they look like water bottles, but a lot of times when people use just a baby doll, there's no weight to it unless you get a weighted baby doll. And so the change in your body language, it's not a big deal. The other thing is many people are used to giving cues to their dog, especially we ladies. We tend to have to get up and stand up for our dog to listen to us. If we're leaning back on the couch or we're laying down, our dog often doesn't listen. Many people only can get their dog to follow cues in the kitchen by the cookie jar or wherever it is. But we need it to be consistent. So by using the pillowcase with the water bottles, one, it's a pretty boring thing for the person to be holding. It's low value to dogs. We increase the value of it over time by adding food to it, because if I can build the confidence with an expectant mom that when they're holding this object that smells really good or something that's of value, and they can have their dog sit, lay down, go to their place without having to get up off the couch, without having to move, I'm actually building confidence that they're able to handle their dog in other situations as well. So it's really important because I think a lot of people can't give their dog cues while they hold their dinner and that kind of thing. But if they can do that with food, their baby's going to be so much less value than something that's really interesting for the dog. And therefore, it helps them to build the confidence that, okay, great, I can have my dog will respond and listen consistently. So that's one thing we want to do. The other thing with the baby, I really like to practice lifting, passing. Does the dog get excited? Many dogs do get reactive when you lift up a baby or you pass a baby, especially if there's a blanket dangling. That's a huge, it's, you know, we can help the dog. So lifting the baby means go to your mat. We can do things to train the dog so that they know what to do and what's expected. You mentioned one of my favorite things, and that is the bring home a blanket or a baby cap, or I've even heard bring home the diaper, or that kind of thing. Our dogs are so keen on scent that in theory, that's a great idea. But I always say, you know, if you were going to visit me, would I call you ahead of time and say, hey, honey, can you send one of your undergarments so my dog can get to know you before you arrive at my house? We don't do this. And so in theory, yes, your dog is familiar with scent and all these things. But dad's bringing scent home, and mom, as we know, during that third trimester, or, you know, mom smells, she's going to smell a lot like baby too. And so those scents are already introduced on some level at the end of the pregnancy. And so doing that feels great. If we say, look, it's Kelsey, and we did it too. My daughter's, you know, we did do it. It feels good. If our dog doesn't go off the charts nuts or growl or do something, we feel very good about that. We want harmony. But what we need to do is remember that including our dogs slowly, gradually, this is a relationship that's going to take time. It's like a marriage. You know, you're going to date for a while. It takes time. It takes consistent, positive exposure and encounters. So yeah, it's not just the scent.
Yeah, I think a lot of times parents think that, poof, it's, you know, the dog is just going to accept the baby and they're really not going to have to do any work and it's just going to be, you know, easy. But there really is a lot of thought and consideration that needs to go into this new friendship that is going to be starting between the baby and the animal.
Well, and here's the thing. I look at it this way. We've got 3 months where we can do everything. We can manage, we can supervise the baby 100%. During that 3 months, if a dog is getting gradually exposed to the scent, the sounds, the activity, the relationship through observation, not interaction, through observation, there is no need for a dog to be up close to a newborn. So every time I see photos where there's a baby and a dog, I cringe. We don't need that. They don't need to be up close and personal. That's our need. That is really our need. We want to see it. There's no question. What's cuter than a large dog with a newborn? But here's the thing. If we're maxing out, first of all, is that a safe situation? Is that making the baby feel safe? Are we actually, some babies look miserable when they're propped up next to the dog. They look unhappy. They could be fearful. There's a lot of different things. This is an animal, so to speak, and we want to be really careful that if they're uncomfortable, they can't raise their paw and say, could you help me out? So we can't blame them when they actually do say, I've had enough, or, you know, I'm done. They've usually tried to communicate in many ways. And what I find is a lot of people get very relaxed after the first 3 months, and then baby starts crawling and moving. And to be honest with you, on our hotline, 8 months is the most frequent age, and 16 months of age. And it's heartbreaking to me when we get a call.
Basically crawling and walking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a game change. So even if the dog has done phenomenally well during those first periods, if people consistently allow their baby and have the expectation that their baby should be able to approach the dog, that is the number one. Dog doesn't have a sense of trust about that interaction, It's unpredictable, and because dogs rely on predictable, consistent communication, it is absolutely conflicting, confusing, and often where we see things go very wrong. Yeah. And it's preventable. I believe it's preventable.
So you have a conference coming up where, now is this for professionals? Is this for families? Who are you looking to bring to your conference?
So our conference is really for the professional who is looking to, who goes into the home, whether they're a dog behavior consultant or trainer, veterinarian, childbirth educator. We do have our keynote or key person is Dr. Van Fleet, and she is actually a family therapist. She does play therapy. She's going to be talking about empathy and doing some interactive activities. I will be talking about child development and the correlation between the different stages and the reactions, predictability of the dog based on the observations and all the materials I've had over the last years. We will also have National Canine Research Council, my dear friend and colleague who is the leading expert on dog bite related fatalities in the country. And that is what all my material is related to, is everything, the investigations we've done over the last 10 years. So lots of great information to help create dog aware communities and generations. I'm really excited about it.
That's great. Now, where is it and when is it going to be held?
It's going to be July 30th and 31st here in Raleigh. So we welcome anybody. Certainly if there are childbirth educators who are interested, or doulas or midwives, gosh, we really welcome everybody. The more we can bridge these communities, because it takes all of us to support one another. I don't recommend help for I need to send all my families to childbirth educators and doulas, every single one of them. And I don't have those expertise, and lactation consultants. And so families need. Oh, we have a lot of Am I unfrozen?
Yeah, you're unfrozen. Yeah. Now you're going to be speaking at the ICEA conference in Denver in October as well. Is that correct? And what is your session going to be on?
I will be talking about dogs and newborns. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of the similar information that I'll be sharing at my conference, but a little more customized for childbirth professionals, so that they'll have some really helpful tips and resources to take with their families. I did want to share really quickly though, Connie, we do have these handouts on our website. I don't know if you can see. These are printable dog tips. This is, basically we have handouts on our resources page on our website. familypaws.com, and everybody is welcome to download any of these handouts. This is the 5 types of supervision. So I am all about getting resources and education out there.
Well, what I'll do is once Blab has formatted this into a YouTube video,
Sure.
They usually let me know that and give me the link to that. I will put that on my blog and also all over my Facebook, and have links there for your resources and also for your conference. So everybody who sees this can also take advantage of all of that. That's really great.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for making this available to everybody.
Well, great. Thanks. And maybe we can have you on again, because I'm sure that we haven't even touched the top of all the information that you have. So Thanks for sharing with us today, and thanks everyone for viewing. We have about 10 or 11 in the audience, it looks like, and so once this goes up on the blog and the Facebook page, it'll be open for everybody to see. So thanks, Jen. And as I said, next week on the 17th, Niset Jekalovics, who is the primary researcher for the VBAC Education Project, that's a joint collaboration between the International Cesarean Awareness Network, ICEA, and also her own page, vbac.com, will be with us talking about the VBAC Education Project. And so please tune in then. It's every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes we're on time at 2:30, and, you know, a couple weeks ago we went to 3, and, you know, as long as there's enough information to blab about, we'll be here. So again, thanks so much, Jen, for joining us, and we'll see everybody next week.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.